Hello, this is Eric of Not BIOS Tech and Reviews, and welcome to my review with the Fujifilm X-S20 camera, and that's what I'm using to film right now. I'm using the XF 33mm 1.4 f-stop water-resistant lens, and this is an upgrade over the kit lens, so we're going to be testing that as well. And this kit lens happens to be the 18 to 55mm with optical image stabilization. Motion blur, we're going to be doing log format, we're going to be going outside, we're going to be testing dynamic range 100, 200, 400, and even comparing against the Sony ZV1. And by the way, even at the lowest possible quality, at 8-bit, which is a smaller format than I was using, even with the Sony ZV1, the image quality is still better from this camera. But I would expect that out of a camera that's more than double the price versus a Sony ZV1 that includes a lens. That most of the reviewers didn't show how awful the original firmware was. Like, I am talking about really bad. Like, I had my camera set up here, looking at me, and I could not, for the life of me, to get it focused on me ever before I had that firmware update from July 13th. So if you have the original firmware, update it. It's going to help a lot. This is out of camera footage, but a bunch of steps to change it. Let's get to default. And what we're seeing right now is default out of camera. I don't know at this time how this looks because I did not use the default settings out of camera ever before. MP4 file format is easier to work with and view on PC. H.265 is better quality and allows more compression of your video files. And long GOP versus all intra. All intra is the highest quality, while long GOP is a compression method. Very fine, hard to spot details can get lost when compressing with all GOP. Generally speaking, only a well-trained eye will notice any difference. Now let's discuss different quality formats. 8-bit color. That is the lowest quality this camera has, which YouTube is up to 8-bit color. Now, if you try to push color tones, you can get color banding, and it doesn't have as much information as 10-bit color. 420 isn't the same quality as 422. So 420, even at 10-bit, can get banding, and banding means you get some basic artifacts in the image between similar color tones. 422, of course, is the best quality at 1.07 billion colors, compared to 8-bit, which is 16.7 million. It's now time to try out the film simulation mode. Right now we are viewing the Provia standard profile film simulation mode. We are now viewing the Velvia vivid profile simulation mode. Do I have more of a soft appearance? Have no clue. Do I look more chrome or classic? There's a description for each one of these, but the main thing is, how does this look? We are now in Pro Neg Standard, or Pro Neg STD. Probably means classic, negative, just like all the other NEG dot format. Does this look nostalgic negative to you? This is the Eterna Cinema profile. Does it look very cinema to you? This is Eterna Bleach Bypass. How does this look? I'm black and white. Now how does this look? And this is monochrome. The point is, how does this look? Fuji makes an app that I can actually record with and stop the recording. That's how I actually started the recording for this. Now I'm in Eterna. Now let's see what I can do when I color grade this. Now, when I color grade this profile, it looks quite stunning. So if you don't want to use a log format, this is definitely an option. Talk about log. Right now we're viewing Flog1. Now let's add a LUT to this. And this is downloaded from Fujifilm. Now it comes in 4 different files. This happens to be the one just for the log format. I can do Eterna Bleach Bypass or Eterna look, or just keep it in log look. Now let's color grade this. How do I look now? And of course, this is the highest quality possible, 422 all intra, the biggest file format possible. And I'm at ISO 640, that's locked in. We can't go a lower ISO or a higher one because that is what it is. Now let's get to log 2 file format. We're now viewing Flog2 file format. Let's add a LUT. And of course, this is also from Fujifilm for download with 4 different files, very similar to Flog1 has for files as well. Now let's color grade this. How is this looking? This is also all intra with the highest quality possible, 360 megabits per second. Yeah, and our ISO minimum is 1250. Pretty high. Can't go higher, can't go lower. That's what it's locked at. Now let's check out HLG. We are now viewing HLG file format. Fuji doesn't have anything to edit this. However, I can edit this in post. Let's see how this looks. This is 422 full all intra. How am I coming through visually with HLG? What are my thoughts on Flog1, Flog2, and HLG? Well, Flog1 didn't have problems with my LEDs in the background. There was no flickering. It's also brighter tone. Flog2 is more contrasty, but of course we're changing from 640 ISO to 1250 ISO. How about HLG? That's locked at 1000 ISO. And after playing around with the brightness and everything else, I found it looked like I had jaundice. Sure, I can do a vector scope and edit those color tones, but this was to show you what HLG looks like. I personally would not go there. At the same format, I record with my Sony ZV1, which is 8-bit, 100 megabits per second. So let's check this. Being identical, oranges to oranges, how does the Sony ZV1 look? We are now viewing this on the Sony ZV1. My shutter speed is 100 and f-stop of 1.8 with an ISO of 200. How does Sony do it? Now to improve the image quality of the Sony ZV1, I actually have to reduce lighting. Now we are back to the Fujifilm X-S20 using the kit lens. And now what I'm going to do is go back to the Sony ZV1 at a wider view just like this. And what I'm going to have to do to get better image quality is reduce the light, because if you notice, everything has tonal range. It doesn't have the dynamic range of the Fujifilm X-S20. And to keep non-biased opinions, if we pixel peep at both pieces of footage, the Sony ZV1 actually has sharper image quality when using the kit lens of the Fujifilm. However, this prime lens right here, Pro lens, has sharper image quality though. But it does, again, cost more. So there's that. When it comes to Sony cameras, here's what really ticks me off. We see the regular video files, and then we have these darn files. Every file I record makes that file, and I don't want it. But yet, I'm forced to have it, and that is why I call it garbage. Fujifilm cameras doesn't have that. The files are all my useful files that I want. Right now I'm using the Fujifilm Fujinon XF 33mm f-stop 1.4 lens at 1.4, and this is a water resistant Pro lens. And let's see what we can do for focus. So we can see the actual screen of my camera. I'm recording it with my Insta360 Link webcam, and it does focus on me very well. Because if I go move around, you can see I can go kind of crazy and it's just on me like no problem. Now you might not have the same experience. If you do not have at least the July 13th firmware update, get it. Because the experience is way, like insanely better, because it tracks motion a heck of a lot better. So it caught focus there of this, and it's going to go back to me. But first of all, let's make myself really blurry. And I'm trying to do it on purpose that it won't catch me. It still caught me pretty decent. I have locked on focus set to fastest possible, the autofocus speed set one step down from the fastest possible. Now, if I wanted to focus faster, watch what I can do. So I want to make it go blurry again on me. Okay, now see it's blurry. What you do is you move a little bit and it catches you faster because part of the update for the firmware was for fast motion tracking using AI to track autofocus faster. Set to around 1.8, maybe even 2. It will definitely help a lot with your autofocus. Gonna get my eye off focus. Oh, there it is. It knows what it is. It's focusing on itself as a camera. But I want to get that background blur big time, so it makes it very hard to focus on me. But look at that jump back. That's by changing the f-stop. Huge difference. And of course, this is a pro lens, and your lens will make a difference in terms of how good you focus. Now, one thing I recommend, checking out Christopher Frost on YouTube. Christopher, last name Frost. He reviews lenses so you can know your experience about focus. Does it focus well? Is it sharp image or not? Is blooming a problem? How is bokeh? So, lenses, recommendation, Christopher Frost. And focus area, this is important for continuous autofocus mode. And we're going to choose area rather than multi. If you're not using touch to focus, I'd recommend just staying with multi. So right now we have a touch to focus option. Let's get a focus box right up here. So I'm going to touch the screen. So right now we have eye focus. It's focusing my eye. Oh, let's make sure it's not focusing there, okay? Anything I put here is going to be in focus, and it shouldn't be focusing on my eye so much. And as long as that's enough light, and we move it a bit if there's any situation with focus. But yeah, this way I can go in different objects. But there's one problem with this mode. One simple big time issue. Going back to all these different things here. Now, the issue is, watch, if I get even close to this, watch what's going to happen. There. Now, nothing's going to be in focus per se. If I go here, it's not going to ever go in focus. My eye is the focus point now. So what I have to do is I have to get out of the scene and then set something else. So there we go. Now we can focus on objects again and not on me. And it'll automatically focus to the background when it's not focusing on an object until I happen to move back a bit. And then again, we're not going to be able to get proper focus like this. What I'm going to do now is turn off eye detect and now put a focus box. It's not going back to my eye. But let's say I want it in the center where I am. This way I can choose to focus on me every time and I can show what I want. As long as I have it right here and I want to go like this. This is a cooler, by the way, for say custom cooling. If I want to make a custom cooler for the camera, right here I can do so. So I just keep myself on the block here on my camera and I can show this other cooler here that I was making for is an idea of a heatsink for this camera. So if I were doing reviews, this could work just snazzy. Okay, right here. So I can just focus it in front of my face without having to worry about it being right in front of my face and just go focus my face. And you might be wondering, well, is it gonna have problems pulsing? Well, let's hold this here and see if I have any pulsing problems with focus. And let's look at the background as well. We're gonna look for pulsing. And of course, if I move back and forth, the background blur is gonna change. So you can see I have more blur of where my head is, less blur as I go back. And it's so lovely that it focuses on me every time. So this is a neat little feature to have like so. Now, if I didn't have touch to focus on and I go in regular multi-area, let's check out what happens without eye detect. We're changing our autofocus mode. We're going to multi. Subject detection turned off completely. And we are now at the same thing as product showcase on Sony cameras. Now, what do I mean? Watch my hands be in focus and not me. Watch as this is in focus no matter where I am, even if I'm not covering myself. Touch to focus in area was actually very useful because I can actually focus on me and actually make it so I can put my hands out and be in focus still until my hands were in front, just like so. Now let's get to vlog mode. And that's a touch thing. Oh, and we got the different screens right here you can see. So let's see the other one. I'm not sure if you saw it on screen, but there's a background defocus mode. That simply sets the aperture to the most wide open, where you have most blur possible with your particular lens. Now this is the same as other mode, that it's focused on everything in front. So no matter what is in front of me, that is the focus. Works quite neat, but you'll want to set up your settings because you can even set it the same way. Vlog mode is simply a simplified screen. It's no different than your regular mode of recording. It's just got the vlog screen. So let's go back. Do I have to exit the menu? Maybe. Let's try. Yeah, there. So I had to exit the menu for this eye detect thing to turn on. But yeah, so eye detect, of course, focuses on you of all things and your hands, not the main focus. Now let's get down to business of image stabilization. And for audio, I'll be using the Rode NTG. Digital image stabilization with boost on for image stabilization. And of course that means I'm cropped in. So how am I coming through and how wobbly am I? Which I might be pretty wobbly just because of the fact it's really hard to hold a zoomed lens way out like this. I'm now shooting with image stabilization boost with in-body stabilization without the digital stabilization. How am I coming through with this camera in this pro lens use with a dynamic range of 200? Now let's turn off image stabilization and see how wobbly this is. All image stabilization is turned off, including the image stabilization boost. How am I coming through? Probably a bit wobbly, but I don't have a clue because, well, I'm not playing it back and I haven't tested previously. So we'll find out in playback if this makes much of a difference. No stabilization. Right now I have image stabilization boost with optical stabilization on, using the kit lens that comes with this camera. How am I coming through? I have no clue. So it's boosted and everything. This is about as good as it gets. I'm walking on a rough sidewalk, as you can probably see behind me now, with the kit lens. And let's turn off the boost. I turned off my digital stabilization, and I can definitely notice my firm off on the side. I had to try to push it back even a little more. But this is with optical stabilization and in-body stabilization with image stabilization boost without the digital stab. And this is my image stabilization with all stabilization off. Again, we can see my little furry thing for my Rode NTG that I'm using right now for recording outside. Really can't block it unless I raise the microphone higher. And now back to full stabilization, including the digital image stabilization, which has a bit of a crop. Will this work for your vlogging needs? I don't know, but the one cool thing is, since this is a kit lens, I can zoom way in and out, just like so. And yes, the camera has to compensate for the amount of light as you adjust. White balance, it's set to auto, but of course my lighting of my place here can change my white balance. And these are some of the different settings you have out of the package here. I personally use studio lighting, and that means I can choose my own. I'm going to go to color temperature for this. So in my case, 5500 is the usual. So I'm going to go to 5500. So we can see it looks more yellowish. And 5500 should be pretty darn accurate. Dynamic range. Dynamic range is set to 100, and this is what we see going towards the sun and back down. ISO is 160. Dynamic range is now set to 200, and the ISO is now 320. Dynamic range is now set to 400, and ISO is now 640. We can't see the sun because it's now clouded over. No fault of the camera, but we can see the images are a lot brighter. At dynamic range 100, everything seems too dark. At dynamic range 200, everything has a nice balance between the brightness of the actual sky and be able to see the trees. At dynamic range 400, everything's too bright and the clouds are now washed out and the bluish tint of the mountains is unnaturally bright. Here's my Fujifilm X-S20 set up here, and I have a tripod. I have an audio cable coming through, and normally that'd be blocking the screen here. Charging cable here, I have a magnetic one, so this allows me to quickly and easily disconnect from the charger, and we can see our screen right here. Here's where we can go to change the volume of our external microphone, and I prefer putting it low because you get hiss really easy at higher levels. For file sizes, I'm now doing 4K at 50 megabit per second file size. This is the smallest file recording size I can get with this mode. It's 8-bit color, easy to edit. I don't know how this looks. I'm in Provia with +2 color. My ISO is locked at 400 right now. So the question is this small file format an option? You decide. And for those wondering, to do vertical video, all you do is simply tip your camera over to the side. So you hold it like this, and all of a sudden you have vertical video as you see right now. I'm filming in 4K with a LUT, and yeah, this is what you see. So great there. Open gate, that simply allows more footage this way, so we can do vertical video with it a lot easier because we have more footage up and down. And here is the size of open gate recording. We have the full footage, which allows us to do a little more editing and have a little more to play with. This camera has a compartment making it easy to install a dummy battery. So if you want unlimited power to record on and on and on, we have that option. And yes, I do have a dummy battery for this camera, so I can do unlimited power. In fact, I have another one coming in that's USB powered with a wall adapter option. So as long as we have a proper dummy battery with at least 3 amps, in the case of my power adapter that's coming in with the USB, it's 3.1 amps. In terms of open gate recording, the overheat time was about 28 minutes at about 25 degrees Celsius. So there's that. And that's only at 30 frames per second. However, at 4K 30 FPS, I never had an overheat shutdown. Not even a red temperature warning whatsoever. So at 30 FPS, I guess we seem to be good there because I recorded for a long period of time. No problems. The room temperature was 24 degrees, reaching up to 25 degrees while recording this footage. 4K at 59.94 FPS or 60 frames per second. At 14 minutes in 11 seconds, we saw the temperature warning. And at 60 minutes, 11 seconds in, we finally see the red temperature warning. At this point, if we turn off our camera and try to record again, it won't record until it cools off. And at 26 minutes, 11 seconds in, we have a high temperature shutdown. Luckily, the camera does store the footage that had been recorded at that time. For video footage and options, let's go to webcam. Right now, the audio you're hearing is from my Sennheiser MKH50, set up as a webcam using the USB cable included with this camera. This is how I'm coming through. Not all USB cables will be able to run 4K at 29.97 FPS, but I am right now. I'm also using NVIDIA broadcast software because OBS was always delayed between video and audio. I don't know if it's still going to be delayed or not, but this is how I'm coming through. Now, if you use Teams, that might not be a problem, but this is my experience right now using OBS, recording right now, and using internal audio tends to be crackly and horrible using this as a webcam. USB charging mode off, communication on. Next, you got to turn off the camera and turn back on the camera. And of course, your settings of the camera are going to affect your recording settings. And right now I'm recording at 4K 29.97 FPS. How am I coming through? Right now we are listening to the external audio of this camera. That is the microphone directly built into this camera using the included cable
to the PC.
Webcam. Okay. This Fujifilm camera at 1080p at 59.94 frames per second or 60 frames per second overheated. Not acceptable, Fuji. It was overtopped by tower, to be fair, which is kind of warm. But what is another thing that makes Sony better is webcam? You can charge a Sony at the same time running as a webcam, but you can't do that at the same time as running this. Sony is the better webcam. Now, one thing that's better about the software for Sony versus this, I can view footage real time on a app for Sony on my mobile phone. Did it with my Sony ZV1. It was a bit jittery on my Sony ZV1, but it is a cheap camera. Well, software for the Fuji is not quite on par. So, Sony wins for software. There is no catalyst software. In terms of balancing and stabilization, with optical stabilization, this is not half bad, but regular stabilization is not that great. Even with the digital stabilization, it was okay, not amazing, but beats many different Sony cameras because Sony tends to be kind of on the stabilization department. The Sony ZV1 itself has no stabilization, but it has steady thing through cropping. And it does have catalyst software that actually works quite well. Though that's an extra step. The Sony ZV1 is just not that good, image quality wise. It's actually pretty decent a camera for the price, but there's too many corners that have been cut. In terms of a camera I'd recommend over this one, the Sony A6700 that came out just after this is probably your better bet as a camera, despite it overheating, because this overheats as well. Now, the Sony A6700 also has crop mode that follows you along the sensor, while the Fujifilm has no sort of tracking mode. It has focus mode, which the Sony also does, touch to focus. The Fujifilm menus are a disaster and drive me absolutely insane. These get hidden. So let's say if I want to reset my settings, I have to go to user menu. We can see format, if you want to format your memory card, and that's kind of hidden there. So if you don't go to that, you can't find it. But where's my reset? Look at this. We don't see my reset for my camera. If I go back to user settings, now if I go down, this is where it's easy to find here. And now I can see where reset is. Well, the Sony I find a lot better. Easier, more intuitive to use than the mess of hidden menus in the Fujifilm. Formatting is simply on a Sony, just finding the menu. And here I have to go through a menu to find format. Seriously, Fuji? Seriously? Sony is better for video overall for a decent camera. There's a lot of better options like the FX30, FX3, the A6700, the ZV1. Watch for firmware updates. And when there's a firmware update, watch NotBIOS Studio where I test that update. For now, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to NotBIOS Tech and Reviews and help this channel grow. And if you're subscribing right now or already are subscribed, then you are awesome. Thanks again for watching and have yourselves a most wonderful day.